A-Level Core Content, Section H, Aesthetics. Raymond Loewy, the famous American industrial designer, once said that between two products equal in price, function and quality, the better looking one will outsell the other. By the end of this unit, you should have developed a knowledge of a critical awareness of designed objects and products in terms such as colour, form, shape, taste, texture and surface finish. And you must consider the way aesthetic aspects influence appearance, contrast, composition, harmony and disharmony. The study of aesthetics should not be considered in isolation, but it should pervade your whole course. It is particularly relevant in the coursework units, the product study and the design making evaluator A2. What does aesthetics mean? It's actually derived from a Greek word. It's the perception of beauty, and this relies upon all 5 of your senses to create an aesthetic experience. It's not just how something looks. It can also be the way it smells, even the way it sounds. However, appearance is the most dominant aspect. Any discussion on aesthetics or answer to a question should include these kind of terms: line, shape, size, texture, colour, form, balance, proportion and symmetry. Line is where two shapes meet. Look at the shape at the bottom of the screen. See how the lines flow into each other? This would be considered aesthetically pleasing. It's also a term used to describe the shape of cars. Shapes are formed as a result of closed lines. Shapes can be visible without lines when a designer establishes a colour area. They may be composed from parts of different objects in an arrangement. They can be gaps or negative shapes between the objects. Basic shapes include circles, squares, triangles and polygons. All of these can appear in nature in some form or another. We often break shapes down into 2 distinct areas: geometric, here on the left, and organic, flowing shapes, which you can see on the right. The size of an object can also be important when discussing aesthetics. Sometimes products are just too big, and it can be quite easy to be confused by the size they are. Texture can be interpreted in 2 ways. It can be an actual surface quality, where an object might feel rough or smooth, but it could also be a printed texture. Sometimes products have the appearance of being rough or smooth, and this is achieved by printing. Colour is very important in product design. It creates responses by stimulating emotions and can excite, impress, entertain and persuade. Colour can also create negative associations. Research suggests that 73% of consumer purchasing decisions are made in-store. Catching the consumer's attention and conveying information effectively are critical to successful sales. A designer must be aware of how people respond to colour and colour combinations. This slide shows some of the colour associations in product design. Colours like red suggest passion and strength and love, whereas colours of green indicate a more environmental concern. It's also used for first aid and safety. Colours like pink are considered to be feminine. Purples are rich colours that suggest wealth. Black is traditionally seen as a colour of death, whereas white is seen as purity and innocence. Form refers to the 3-dimensional quality of an object. When light from a single direction hits an object, part of the object is in shadow. Light and dark areas within an image provide contrast that can suggest volume. Balance is often important when creating displays. Unbalanced displays can leave a viewer feeling visually uncomfortable and can create a sense of visual stress. The display here on the left is very confusing. It would be very difficult to actually operate, whereas the display on the right on the iPhone is nice and ordered and avoids such clutter. Proportion is also important in product design. The examples here are supposed to be the two most well-proportioned human faces. Proportion relates to the relationship of the distances between certain parts, such as the length of the nose and the width of the eyes. Unfortunately, some people pursue this proportion and get it wrong. Symmetry is also an aspect you may wish to talk about when discussing the aesthetics of a product. Generally, symmetry is pleasing to the eye, as can be seen in the staircase here on the left, and in this design for a futuristic mouse. However, asymmetric shapes, such as this mouse on the right, are also pleasing, as long as balance and proportion are taken into account. Fashion is a general term for a currently popular style or practice, especially in things like clothing, footwear, or accessories. However, it can apply to product design. For example, when the iMac first came out in the late 90s, it made use of a translucent plastic. Very soon afterwards, this effect of using translucent plastic to show the insides of a product appeared on lots of other products, such as craft knives, staplers, tape measures, and more. Here is a typical reflection question for session 3 of the exam. Reflect on the product you have designed. Designers and manufacturers consider aesthetics when developing any product. Prepare a discussion that reflects on your product and addresses the aesthetic issues. You should include modifications you would make to your product to improve its aesthetic appeal, how these modifications would improve the commercial viability of your product, and the levels and methods of production that could be used for your modified product. Any discussion you have regarding the modifications must relate to the terms that we have just covered.